Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize for being a little bit late. I had to run back to my office because I forgotten the cable. Okay, please do fill in the attendance register. We will get started as soon as everyone's done filling that in. Seems to be less of you today. Were any of you at the Wits beer garden thing last night? No. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Okay. So how's your guys' first year experience going so far? Somewhat. Oh yeah. I think Mr. Malileka mentioned that you guys had you guys booked for the first year mentoring? First year mentoring. So it's the same. So if you log onto Eve on the computer on the top left where your subjects are, you should see a new one that says first year mentoring. Has anyone noticed that subject that they've been added to? This is for first year. Okay, not someone who's doing informatics, but they've been here for a while. It's for people whose first year it is academically and otherwise. So if you need to book for a session, just like you booked for the info sessions. Basically, booking a session will you need to choose a time slot that you are going to be available. Obviously, this needs to be something that's outside of your class timetable. Pick a time, and you will need to attend a meeting with a mentor at least twice a month, every other week. So basically, what we try and do there, the mentors are the colleagues that we have in the academy. And we basically talk about anything and everything that you want to talk about as far as VJ is concerned, the first experience. Even if you have some personal issues that you want to speak to someone about, that person should be able to hear you out. Just a disclaimer, we are not qualified therapists. So we won't be able to help you with all of the issues you have, but you shouldn't feel disheartened to ask us. We can direct you to the right people. So basically think of us as your guides, more or less, to go, this is the problem I'm having. We will be able to direct you to the right people to assist you with whatever issue you have. So if you haven't booked for one, please do go book for one. So there's a question here that says, a question about the prac, should we upload our design in a folder with our prac? No, I think we've answered that question already. For the people that are going to be physically in the practical session, you bring a handwritten design on a piece of paper. When the assistant calls you up, you give it to them, they'll mark it, give it back to you. Okay, if you are online though, you can't necessarily physically hand it in. Then you need to have your handwritten design scanned. You can use apps such as Cam Scanner, Adobe Scanner, and all of those other wonderful apps that will scan your physical design and turn it into a digital one. We will have a Google account, a Google upload link where you can upload your design if you are being marked online. The only thing you need to make sure is your practical name, the naming convention we gave you on the practical, and the name of the file that you're going to have as your design are the same. So if you can't find it, we can't mark it. Should we have our student number, EC, etc. on the design? Yes, preferably. Yes.
Sir, I'm looking at the practical booking menu. It says registration is not enabled.
For first year bookings?
Yeah, for booking.
I mean, for the first year mentoring?
They're not mentoring practical.
Yeah, practical bookings are done.
Oh.
So you booked whatever practical session you booked last week is going to be a practical session for the entire 14 weeks. Yeah, you don't book them every week. Has everyone done their attendance? Cool. Let's move on.
Also, sir.
Yep.
The practical at the doing tomorrow, is that this mark calculating thing that we're doing right now?
No, you're going to get a different one altogether.
We're getting that today.
Sorry?
We're getting that tomorrow.
You're getting it tomorrow. So the idea is every single time you sit in the practical session, there will be a practical given to you, and there will be a practical that needs to be marked from last week. So tomorrow around 10 to 2, there should be a new practical released for the next week. Okay, before we get started, let me just separate my screen so I can see what the online people are saying. For Prec 1, we should use time spent in this module alone or in class. It's not necessarily about this module, it's about any other module. So you basically take the NQF level, times it by 10, and you get how many hours you need to spend on that. Yes, you need to submit it as a zip folder. Please review the lectures from last week and the tutorials from last week. We went through that already. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about data conversions and if statements. Okay, so yesterday there was a lot of you picked up that there would be something wrong with this. This is the code from yesterday, from lecture 4. And as we said, but how is that possible? So what is actually going on? You're basically placing the value into the placeholder, the variable. So whatever you're getting from txt mark 1 over there, whatever you're getting from txt mark 1 over here, whatever you're getting from txt mark 1 text will be given to mark 1 over there. So in the above case, you are saying mark 1 is a placeholder which must store whatever is in the text field of the text box txt mark 1. And we went through that yesterday. Everyone seemed to be okay with that. This implies that mark 1 is the same data type as the text field, which is always string. So we discussed that yesterday as well, to say everything you get from a text field will always be type string. Okay, because you are effectively inputting a long character, will be a string. So what do we have here? But we know that our variable is an integer because we declared our variable and we said 1 should be an integer. And we also know that an integer is not the same as a string. So what happens? Why does line 6 execute? So you could look at it as some sort of miracle. There's just something that happens that allows this to happen, but we do know it's not supposed to happen. I touched on this yesterday as well. So it's because Visual Studio tries to be smart, and some of the smart features of Visual Studio are not necessarily working in your favor. Some of the things it does, or it thinks you wanted to do, will end up being detrimental to you and your program. So ideally, Visual Studio Visual Basic Language tries to automate the process of conversion for you. Because we're working with simple data types, we're just working with string, integers, doubles, not necessarily with booleans, but it can do that as well. It is relatively smart enough to convert these basic conversions on your behalf. So it sees that on the one hand we have an integer, on the other hand we have a string. Something needs to be converted. Okay. On that, which one are we converting? If we have to convert, which one needs to be converted? Yeah. The txt. Why is that? Because it's string. So everything string needs to be converted. Anyone agree? Mark 1 should be converted. That's from online. Txt mark1 dot mark should be converted. At this point, I'm trying to. Why? Why is that the case? Yeah. Okay, so what are we going to convert? We're going to be converting TXT Mark 1's text. And the reason for that is because the placeholder we're trying to put it into only accepts integers. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move on. For the above, it is automatically converting the string in the text box, TXT Mark 1's text field, and changing it into an integer value. This integer value can then be stored in Mark 1. Okay, I was just looking at some online questions there. So basically, again, Visual Studio is trying to be smart. By that same token, when you are trying to, which one is going to be converted in this instance? The average. Why are you converting the average? Yeah. Okay, I get that. But why are we converting it to a string? So you're saying txt.average is already a string, right? Yes. But what dictates, why can't we just change txt and text to a double? What dictates that it needs to be a string? We've got mine does not convert. It gives me an error. Okay, you've done something wrong then in that case, or you've skipped ahead in the slides. Same idea. It's the same token as before. Yes. Okay, so where are we putting the average? Remember yesterday we said whatever is on this side gets given whatever is on this side. Okay, so if we're going to take whatever is on this side and put it this side, which one needs to conform? Which one needs to obey by the other one's rules? The one that is being stored in something else, right? So the container is not going to change. It's not going to change for anyone. It's still going to remain a whatever it is contained. So if the container is an integer, if Mark 1 is an integer, whatever is going to be put into Mark 1 needs to be an integer. It's never going to change. Okay. In this case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to display the average. We're trying to put the average into the text box. So do you think it should get to a point where they're negotiating and the average says, I think you should convert into a double because I'm already a double? No, right? The container will always remain. Again, if you remember that rule of thumb I told you yesterday to go, whatever is on this side will get whatever is on this side. You can use that same one to say, whatever is on this side is always going to remain its original data type. The one that needs to convert or play along is whatever is being stored inside it. In this case, because average needs to be stored inside our text box, we're going to convert average to a double. Same thing here. Because our text box text field, what should be stored inside Mark 1, it is going to be converted to an integer. Is this understandable? Is everyone on the same page? Sorry? Why do you convert the average to a double? Why do I convert the average to a double? I don't. The average is already a double. Remember, when we started over here, we declared average as a double. Also, you're converting the TXT one. I'm converting? I'm converting the one that's on the, you see the average where you showed us these on the right? Yeah, that would be line number 17. Yeah. Yeah, what about it? You're converting the one that's the TXT of text to you're converting that to a double. No. No, again, so whatever is on the right will always remain. So in line 17, what's on the right? What data type is that? On the right is the average. On my. On your right is the average. On my, this is my right. This side. What's on this side? The TXT. Okay, so what's the rule of thumb? Convert what's on this side. Okay, let's forget left and right because that's a bit. Okay. This side and that side. Okay, what's on this side? That's TXT. What's on this side? my average. What am I trying to put into which side?
You're trying to put in the you put in the DXT into the average box.
So this is what you want me to do.
Yeah,
is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Is that correct? Okay, so the rule of thumb again is whatever is on this side gets given whatever is on this side. Okay, so whenever you are doing assignment, yeah, I'm sorry, I tried doing the left and right for you guys online, but that's a bit confusing because my left is their right and their right is my left. So we'll just do this side and that side. Okay, so whatever is on this side will get given whatever is on that side, right? So in this case, this one is the container. It's what's going to store something. Okay, the container will never change. Remember, I think 2 weeks ago when we spoke about different containers in your house, having a pasta container, having a rice container, all of that. Do you think you're ever going to get to a point where, because you're trying to store, yes, in real life this works, but in an ideal world, if you're trying to store pasta and you put it in the rice container, does the rice container all of a sudden change into a pasta container? No, it doesn't. What you effectively did is very wrong. Okay, it's again like putting everything in an ice cream container. It doesn't work for everything. But if your container, if you have a bottle of water, okay, that is a water bottle. The point of that bottle is to store water. If you're trying to store some other thing inside of it, do you think that's going to work? No. Do you think you're going to get to a point where the shape or the attributes of the container changes to fit whatever you're trying to put into it? No, right? So the container will always remain the same. What you need to do is make sure whatever you're putting inside the container is the right material, is a compatible type. Okay.
Would you say that the container is independent?
Yes, so if we're talking in terms of mathematics, you would say yes, the container is an independent variable. It will not change. But what's being stored inside of it has the capabilities to move around. So depending on what you're doing, again, over here, my container is mark 1. It's an integer. It dictates that whatever it is that I put inside it has to be an integer, which is why I am going to convert this into an integer so it fits. Same thing applies here. This is a string. It dictates whatever it is that I put inside of it be a string, which is why average will be converted into a string for it to fit. Does that make sense for everyone? Yeah. My right, yes, will always remain the original data type it was. It's what's on the left, your right, that will always change. Okay, for the prac, will there be user input or the program? Okay, please avoid asking random questions in the chat. Please ask questions that are related to today's lecture, because I do take time out to read what you have written, and if it's not relevant, I can't get that time back. Okay, let's move on. I think we were over here. So, but the fact that Visual Studios, the fact that all of that understanding is useless now, because Visual Studios does the conversions for you. Spoke about this yesterday as well. It is bad practice. It's bad programming language, because you're going to later on, you're going to be dealing with complex data types. And with complex data types, Visual Studios will not be able to do that conversion for you. That's one of the reasons. Second reason, not all coding languages have this built-in feature where they can kind of be smart enough to tell what you were trying to do. So in order for you guys to code well, we enforce certain rules on your Visual Basic applications. So it is better and safer to be in charge. That way you know exactly what's going on. Okay, if one of those conversions did not work properly, are you going to know which one did not work properly? If you're getting the wrong answer, are you going to know why you're getting the wrong answer? No, because a lot of things are happening without your control. You don't actually know how those conversions are being done. So we like to be in control. As coders, we like to have control of almost everything that is in our system, because we'll be able to tweak it up. It's one of the reasons I hate Apple devices, because they lock a lot of the functionality away, and I want to change certain things. They don't allow me to do that. There's pros and cons to everything. So rather actively request the data conversion yourself. This way you know when there's a potential for a data loss, converting a double value into an integer only. Okay, what do you think happens when you convert a double into an integer? What do you think happens? So if I try to convert 49.5 into an integer. Yeah.
Cuts off the decimal.
It cuts off the decimal. Okay? A double is a bigger in size. It's bigger than an integer because it accommodates more numbers than an integer does. An integer only accommodates a certain amount of numbers. So the moment you try and shove something that's bigger into a smaller space, not all of it is going to fit, right? It's going to cut off the rest. So I like making this example again. Would you be happy if this was your exam and you got a 49.5 or a 49.6, and then I converted that double into an integer? And what it does is it chops it off. So now instead of 49.9, you just get 49 because it's going to chop off the rest of the numbers. No, you wouldn't be. But that's what would happen if you allowed Visual Studios to do conversions on your behalf. So it's going to be converting things you don't necessarily want to be converted. So that's why we try to be in control. So how do we do that? We will need to change the settings in our program. So in Informatics 1, we require that you do this programmatically, and this is achieved outside of the code. So remember yesterday we said anything that's between the public class and the end class is what your form will recognize. So any code outside of that will not be recognized. But right now what we are doing is we are changing Visual Basics rules. So we are tweaking the configuration, so to speak. So is the configuration part of your form? No. Just basically telling Visual Studios, these are the rules I want you to engage using. So that is outside of your public class. It's going to be outside of your public class. So on line 1, you're basically going to write option strict on. So what is option strict on? There is someone who has their mic open. Please mute your mic. Okay. This is a setting that tells Visual Studios to effectively be strict and not do conversions on your behalf. This means the conversions can no longer be done automatically or loosely rather. Where an assignment is not the same type, it will warn the programmer, and the programmer must explicitly indicate which data needs to be converted or which part of that calculation or line needs to be converted. So what happens when you put on option strict on? I think one of the students online already tried that, and it gives you an error. Okay, and this is what that error kind of looks like. You get red little squiggly lines almost everywhere. So that's where the errors are highlighted. Can you see a particular theme there? So if you hover over it, it's going to tell you something like incompatible types or something like that. So how do we instruct data conversions? How do we tell Visual Studios we want you to convert this to that and this to the other thing? And simply, data conversions are also referred to as casting. So we are interested in casting what's on the right of the assignment into the same type as what's on the left. Okay, so in this case, again, we did go through this. In this case, we're trying to cast, we're trying to cast this into that. So we need to convert the string that's on the right to an integer that is on the left. So for this, we require a function called cint. So cint basically means convert to integer. And whatever you're trying to convert to an integer, you put in the brackets. Okay, so how would that look like? This is what it looks like. So you still have mark 1 is equal to cint. I'm converting the whole text box's text field into an integer. Then you will no longer have that error. It will effectively convert the string into an integer. That makes sense. Any questions on this? Okay, let's move on. So other casting functions. So if you want to convert something to an integer, you use convert to integer, cint. Okay. If you want to convert anything to a double, you use cdbl, which is convert to double. And if you want to convert anything to a string, you use cstring or cstr, so convert to string. Those are the three main casting or conversion functions we are going to be using for informatics 1. There's a question online that says, do capitals matter? No, it does not matter. Visual Studios is case sensitive, but if it does see that you're trying to call a certain function, it will uppercase what it needs to uppercase for you. What if you use C type? You will get 0 because I did not teach you C type. Are we required to turn option strict on? Yes, you are. Not necessarily for practical 1, because it might be too late in the day to do that. But for practical 2 onwards, you are required to always set option strict on. Yep.
So when referring to variables, like you've got something called I num, if you declare it as I capital N U M, or I, does it matter if you refer to it later as I lowercase n U M?
No. So again, Visual Studios is case sensitive, but it's smart enough to recognize those things. It's a good and bad feature depending on who you ask. So if you do small letter I, capital letter N U M, and then later on you say small letter I, small letter N, it will recognize the fact that you're trying to refer to that variable on top, and it will capitalize that N for you, which is amazing if you don't know how to use caps lock or shift, right? But it's also a bad thing in case you want to name multiple variables similar things, one with uppercase, one with lowercase. I know languages like C++, C Sharp, and all of that are not case sensitive. So if I declare a variable called inum with a capital N, and I declare a variable called inum with a small n, it will see those two as two different variables. Okay, yes?
Will that not work if I start practicing my testing on prep 1?
No. I have taught you this, so it's eligible for prep 1. It is not a requirement, but if you do it, you will get marked down. Yes?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. But also, if you do it and it crashes your code, you're still going to get less marks because of it. Okay, so that's why I would say I encourage experimentation, but not in your practical. So you can try it out, see if it works. If it does work, great. You don't need to submit it, but you retain the knowledge. If it doesn't work, also great. You can go ask the assistants later for help, but it does not impact your marks at the end of the day. So try and have two parallels, one that you're going to submit and another that you're just going to play around with. Yes?
So if all your variables are integers, there is no need to convert your TF.
Okay, what data type is TXT? What data type is the information you give or take from a text box? String. Okay, so if all your variables are integers and you're getting this information from strings, are those two compatible types? No, they're not. So you're going to need to convert.
So you will convert it into TXT and so on.
Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of online questions that I'm getting. Is there casting function called CDBL for decimals? Yes, it's just double is a decimal, is the visual basic equivalent of a decimal. So this is what it's going to look like once we have casted it. So we're going to convert all of the inputs that we're getting from the user to integers because the placeholders that we're going to put them in are all integers. We're going to convert the average into a string because we're trying to put it back into a text box. Does that make sense? Everyone happy with what you see in front of you? Lady in the orange hoodie doesn't look too happy. What's the problem? Okay, yes.
Why is your average now a string?
Why is my average now a string? Okay, what data type is the information we get or put into a text box? A string. What data type is my double? Sorry, what data type is my average? What data type is my average? Double. Okay, so what do we have on your left and what do you have on your right? So what's on your left will always remain its true, what you call it, will always remain its true data type. Okay, so we've got a string on this side, in double on this side. Which one needs to change? The one that's on this side, which is why we are converting our average into a string so that it can be stored or given to our text box, because our text box is a string. Does that make sense? Questions? Yes. How do I declare? How do you display multiple text lines in one text box? Ask me that question in 3 weeks. I'll have that answer for you. We're not there yet.
Yes. Earlier you said if we do something you haven't taught us, we get 0.
Not necessarily 0. But
just go ahead.
what are you trying to use?
Well, I've used a lot. I've checked if the edits are empty and stuff like that. Make sure messages faithful and stuff.
So the issue with going beyond what we've taught you is, again, when you're getting marked, there's going to be someone sitting next to you, right? You need to explain to that person beyond a reasonable doubt that you fully understand what it is that you've used, okay? But also, you need to also make sure that you look ahead in our syllabus or in the learning guide to see if what you've done is covered in the syllabus.
Okay.
Yes. So message boxes, we're definitely going to use those. But how you go about using, there's certain libraries maybe you might have used or certain things that we don't necessarily endorse. So you run that risk of sitting there and having that person that's marking you say, this is wrong. It works, but this is wrong. As far as Informatics 1A is concerned, this is not how we want to teach you to do things. So if you're willing to accept that risk, then you definitely can. But to be on the safe side, same thing I was telling that gentleman on the other side, to be on the safe side, do those things, right? Go to the assistants. Go, this is what I've done. It's not for mark purposes. This is my personal stuff. Help me. Is this correct? Is this not correct? Then they'll be able to tell you, as far as Informatics 1 is concerned, it's better to do that than to sit in front of someone and have them mark you down for the work that you've done above and beyond the scope of work. Okay. Yes.
So when you say that conversion from a double to an integer, you said that it cuts off, right?
Yes.
Doesn't it round off instead?
No, it cuts it off.
Or it cuts it off?
It depends. It's language dependent. Yeah, but Visual Studios will definitely cut it off. Okay, so we're all happy here. In addition to option strict, so in addition to forcing you to do your own conversions, there is another command we want you to add on the top of your Visual Basic form, and that is option strict on. So option strict will force you to declare your variables. So over there, I've got username is equal to bar. Visual Studios has no idea this username variable is, what this username variable is, because we have not declared it. Normally, if you don't have option strict on, it will see, hey, I've never seen this username thing before, but I see that it's being equated to a string, or the string is being converted to something else. So that means username is a new variable, and that variable is of type string. Let me create that variable on your behalf. Do you see how charitable Visual Studios is? It just does most of the work for you. Okay, but once again, that's bad coding practice. You need to declare your variables before you start using them. So if you enable option strict on, it will force you to declare your variables on top, like we did with mark, total, and average. And I can hear that little voice in your head that goes, what if I don't put them there? And my code works. Great. What I'm going to do and what the marker is going to do is, the moment we start marking, we scroll all the way up to see, do you have your options there? If the answer is no, what do you think we do? Anyone? What do you think we do? Yes. We put up? I will generously put those two lines there for you. What do you think is going to happen to your code the moment I put option straight on, option explicit on? It's not going to execute, and I'm going to cap it at 40. Okay. So don't try and be smart and go, I'm not going to put them on because it's more work. I'll just submit it the way it is. We will put them in for you. How do we know the parameters to put inside? What do you mean by that? I don't understand what you mean. Inside what? If you have more than one button, do you code in each of them, or you can control the others using the other? We have not done multiple coding yet. Is dim wrong? Yes, dim is definitely wrong. Again, if I did not teach you, please do not use it. You can use it in your personal capacity, but not in my practicals. Okay, any questions about this? Yeah.
So there's a difference between option strict on and explicit on?
Yes. Okay. And that's tested examinable. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Does everyone get that? It is going to be in your test. Yes. Option? We haven't. It's in the slides. Let's. I think there is. Okay, we haven't. We'll get to the actual definition of it. But basically, option explicit forces you to declare your own variables. Option strict forces you to do your own conversions. Option explicit forces you to declare your own variables. That's the two options you need. For now, there's a third one, but we'll get to that later. Moving on, how to make your code more understandable. I'm sure you guys have seen in the rubric for practical one, there is coding style. We'll talk about readability, comments, and all of that. We have spoken about it in passing in class, but it's just to make your code a little bit easier to read. So over here, these little green lines. So it's basically you telling us what you're doing at every point of the way. You don't need to put a comment on each and every line, ladies and gentlemen. Just somewhere you feel that this is a complex calculation or you need to declare what is happening here. We spoke about this as well. It makes it easier for you to come back at a later stage and remember what you were doing. So something along the lines of, here I'm declaring my variables. Here is read in marks. I haven't declared it yet, whatever. But if it's in green, the compiler will not read it. So when you try to run your program, all of the lines that are in green will not be read by your compiler. So therefore, they aren't necessarily code. You can do this as well for code that is crashing your program. Just put a little, how do you comment? Just put a little quote. Put a little quotation mark. Whatever you write after that will be in green and it won't be read by the compiler. So if your code is crashing and there's a little one line that's crashing it, just comment it out and submit. It will still run. It won't do what you want it to do, but it won't be capped at 40. Yes.
This name is a red line because it's even declared as a variable.
Yes, because we still have, this is the same code we had last time. It's because we still have our option strict on, and we haven't declared username as a string. So Visual Studio does not know what to do with username at this point. If we did not have our option strict on, it would declare that variable for us. Good. Yes.
So is there a way to comment out a chunk of code all in one go, or do you have to add an apostrophe for each line?
There is a way to comment out. It's not here, but if you open Visual Studios, on top there, next to run or something like that, there is a option to multiple line comment. You just highlight that, click that button, and it will auto comment the whole section that you've highlighted for you. Okay, you can show that in the tutorial, and don't think I have enough time to show you that now. So, and the next slide is conditions. So, in coding, it's not always going to be straightforward. It's not always going to be, here's my marks, and I'm going to times them, add them up, divide them by 6, and get an average. You usually get conditions. Okay, and these conditions are not just coding conditions, they happen in real life as well. So for example, if whoever you're staying with sends you down the road to go buy bread with like 20 rand, they say go buy rye bread, for instance, what are you going to do? You're going to run all the way to the store and get there and buy rye bread, right? That is the ideal condition, and come back with the bread. Okay, but what if you get there and there is no rye bread? But then, what do you do? Yes.
You get brown bread.
You get brown bread. Okay. It's one option. So what do you think the person you're staying with is going to say when they explicitly asked you to come back with rye bread and you came back with brown bread?
There's no rye bread in the store.
Okay, so how did you default to brown bread?
It's closer to rye bread than mine.
According to whom?
Me.
According to you, right? So now you're making assumptions about the situation. But ideally, what you should do is you should run back home and say, there is no rye bread. To which the person might say, then go buy brown bread because it's the closest thing to rye bread. Now you have to run all the way back to the store and buy brown bread. What happens if the second time you get that there is no brown bread? So now you have to run all the way back and go, there is no brown bread, right? Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you're running back and forth. So ideally, you would stand there and go, okay, mom, what do you want? And she goes, buy rye bread. And you say, and if there is no rye bread, okay, if there is no rye bread, buy brown bread, okay? If there is no brown bread, just come back home then, because it's pointless. Okay, what if it's more expensive? Here's more money, something along those lines. The point I'm trying to make is there is always more than one way to go about certain things, right? And that's where conditions come in when we are talking about coding. So let's expand the grade 12 problem a bit. So write a program that will calculate the average of grade 12 students. But I think, let me not get into this. I've got like 1 minute remaining. But basically what we're getting here is the if statement. So you're going to say, here I am. I can either go left, right, center. But there has to be conditions for each of them. So if there's rye bread, come back with rye bread. If there isn't rye bread, come back with brown bread. If there isn't rye bread or brown bread, come back home. So now we've kind of catered for all of those things. You don't have to run back and forth anymore. But we'll do that next week. Ladies and gentlemen, please do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. For those that are in the tutorial this afternoon, I'll see you in a bit.